one at a time.
Literally.
It's a
literally.
slow drip of sales.
It is, but there's exponentials to consider here. 1 becomes 5, becomes 6. Pretty soon you're up to 40.
They'll tell one person, and they'll tell one person, and it just
boom. I have a friend, Carol Casella, who's also a novelist who lives on an island, wrote a great book called Oxygen. Mm-hmm. She told me this story where she went out to a bookstore in Spokane to do a reading. So she drives 280 miles across the desert to do this reading, and there's like 8 people there. And after the reading, the one lady comes up really excited, and she goes, "Oh, we just loved your book. Everybody in town read it. We were just passing that advanced reader's copy off one to..." So she had driven to, you know what I mean? Nobody even bought a book. They loved it, though. Everybody just beat up copy. And there's like, somebody told me they went and got my book at the public library, and there's 150 waiting lists. And me, I got to just hope somebody down around 75, 76 going, "Wow, 3 years is a long way to wait. Maybe I'll just cough up the $14. You know what I mean?" And
well, are you really trying to write the great American novel or the best-selling American novel?
I'm not trying to write a bestseller. I'm not trying to write. I was never even aware of markets until somebody published me. I mean, for instance, I didn't know that guys didn't read. I mean, I've been to 40 book clubs with 10 to 30 women in them. I've seen 2 guys, and they've both been holding dog leashes sort of tentatively in the foyer trying to get the hell out of there before the wine and cheese hits the table. If I'd have known that, I would have written a book from a woman's point of view. You know what I mean? No, I'm not saying that. I'm just trying to write what I love and realizing I'm forced with the reality with the small marketplace to hustle. But, this is part of my ethos anyway. I started in punk rock bands when I was 14, and that meant driving down to San Francisco 3 days in advance and, stapling flyers to telephone poles. It hasn't changed,
Well, you talk proudly, I mean, you should be proud of this book, but you talk very proudly of your next book, West of Here, that's coming out. And it sounds like you went in with some serious ambitions.
I went in with crazy ambitions.
Right. You do want to write the great American novel.
Yeah, I wanted to really, I mean, actually, when people have asked me, I was doing this panel at BEA recently, Book Expo, and one of the questions from the moderator was if there was one person that you thought of when you wrote this book, and my answer was Walt Whitman. So it doesn't get more American than that. Right. I wanted to write this big egalitarian novel that was totally democratic, that was not a historical novel, but a novel about history, more of an anatomy of a history that instead of employing a big wide-angle lens to historicize the material, I wanted to create this sort of kaleidoscope of alternate points of view and events and convergences and I mean, it was really kind of crazy. I mean, I was peeing in jars and writing on my walls, and my wife was leaving food outside of the table. It took me a couple years to get a handle on it, but it ended up being a perfect vehicle for my manic multitasking. And I think it was the fire and ambition that made it a really good book, because I pushed myself to the limit completely. I mean, like really to the limit. And I think that when artists do that, great things happen. Like, look at Moby Dick. I mean, it's kind of a mess, but like it's a mess in a way that can hardly contain the force of its own creation, because it's just there's so much energy there.
Now that sounded sexy.
Yeah.
But setting out.
So do you see what I sort of subtly did there? Moby Dick, my book.
Right,
yeah.
right.
Little leap
Herman
there.
Melville was like a postal worker who had no success in his life.
Like, he probably would have found my life pretty sexy.
Right, because he's working as a civil servant.
Right. And I'm sitting out in a moho drinking beer. See, really... in certain ways we're making, as a breed, the writers are making progress. Maybe.
That's wow. It's really, you're just climbing up that evolutionary scale to almost erect.
Yes.
Which is something your wife talks about too.
I'm erect. Erect.
But really, it seems so bold and almost obnoxious and doomed to failure to think I'm going to write the great American novel.
For me, that's like, I mean, that's what I want to do every time I write. I mean, I think you have to be sort of get in over your head, or I'll get bored.
I didn't want to. It's like creating a viral video. Like, people say, I'm going to make a viral video. You don't make a viral video. You make a video, and it becomes viral. You don't write a novel as the great American novel. You write a novel, and if people like it, it becomes something.
Yeah, but you're talking about a different thing. When you create a viral video of, I mean, come on, let's not reduce the novel to some kid lighting his fart on a couch. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that goes viral. And this is why, ironically, YouTube, who everybody in the world uses as a search engine, loses money hand over fist, because nobody wants to advertise on it. I can say fart, right? Nobody wants to advertise on a kid a fart, and even though they want to watch it 30 times, GE doesn't want to put their name on it. So I wouldn't want to equate the novel to that. I just mean creatively speaking, I feel like, I mean, I often get frustrated with some of my very favorite writers that influence me the most. Sometimes I wish Kurt Vonnegut would have pushed himself a little bit out of his comfort zone. Sometimes I wish Charles Bukowski would have written a Western. Sometimes, you know what I mean? I think it's important for artists. This is just my personal, I just want to read
just
stuff.
falling off their horse constantly. That's all it would be.
I think it would be maybe better than anything else he wrote because he pushes himself out of his comfort zone. That's what I believe in. I mean, that's where.
Well, that's a Stuart Onan model of like going and changing,
And I love Stuart Onan.
That makes the great American writer, not necessarily the great American novel.
Yeah, see, for me, it's just all one big. I mean, my path as a writer is just kind of one big super novel. I just look at it as one big arc, and I want to give that to my readers. You know, I gave them like a coming of age, which is a nice way to get acquainted with the writer.
A little
I think
softball for the audience.
A lot of voice, and then I wanted to come at him with something hard. And the challenge for me is going to be to keep trying to push it harder, and I'm going to. And hopefully not alienate any readers doing that, but I have to, or I mean, I'll become bored.
You have to alienate readers?
No, I have to push myself,
gotcha.
or I'm going to be. I don't want to just write cookie cutters.
But the great American novel doesn't
give the
cost
people
anything.
crap and they'll eat crap.
No, writing a novel doesn't cost anybody anything.
People eat more McDonald's than they do at finer restaurants. So would you argue that McDonald's is an improvement, that people just want McDonald's?
No.
Or would you argue that it's 99 cents, it's quick, and it's easily attainable? They don't have to work as hard.
That's all it is. You think that people are slovenly, and that's it.
No, I didn't say that. I just think people, I mean, you know, people that work 50 hours a week come home, you know, I think it's going to be a little easier for them to snap on and just take the fare that's given to them than it is to be like, okay, pick up a 500-page novel. I mean, it takes work. Reading a novel, that's why I think it's so much more powerful. I mean, I know that cinema, you know, I'm a big fan of cinemas too, but the novel can do some things that other forms can't do because it is a collaboration. I mean, you're talking about, not only are you talking about a 6 to 20 hour investment, but I mean, in terms of synapses firing and creating the image in the head and the sensory, all that sensory stuff, it is a collaboration. I mean, as an author, I can create an effect. I can try to create an effect, but it's still, I depend on the reader to bring it to life. And that takes work. I mean, I think it's a little easier to watch the Kardashians, and it's really easy to just sink lower and lower into the couch. And I would say, ask yourself, might that couch be a metaphor? Aren't you sinking lower and lower? Because I can't watch this stuff. I'm sorry. I hate it. I just deplore it. I think it's everything I don't like about my culture.
Since our viewers are watching television right now, what's metaphor?
The couch is yeah, but this isn't reality TV. I mean, this isn't, you know, you and I aren't having a cat fight right now about.
No, but our ratings would be higher if we were.
Yeah, where do you draw? I mean, I'd sell more books if I wrote a splashy thriller, but that's not what I want to do.
All right, well, I'll join you in the motorhome at some point. But
we'll both be living in it.
But what we like to do on the High Bar is give people a few things that they can go follow up with if they're interested in the great American novel, some books or movies they can check out. What do you have for us today?
A couple of books coming out within the next couple of weeks that I'm really excited about. There's a book called Holy Water by James P. Othmer, who's really amazing. He's kind of in the Gary Stengart vein. He's like now with a capital N. I mean, this guy was an ad exec at Young and Rubicam for like 25 years. So when he talks about commercial culture and global culture, and he nails it. He's really good. That book's coming out from Doubleday next month. Another book from a small press in San Francisco that I'm really
excited. I just want to check. That guy's in the Gary
Stengart. See,
Stengart.
See, everybody
means something to everybody, doesn't it? Yeah. Can you sell it like it's a cross between?
Well, this is why this is what I'm saying. Nobody even knows who Gary Stengart is.
It's like Mad Men meet something. Come on, tease us.
No, it's a great novel. It's going to cost you $24. This is reality. It's hardback. It's cumbersome. It's going to stink in 6 months because it's made out of paper. I'm not going to apologize for novels. I say down with book trailers, too. They seem apologetic to me. Like, let's try to make our book look like a film. Well, it's not a film. It's a book, damn it. And that's been good enough for a long time, and it should be good enough still. I just get grumpy.
You do,
I don't want to pander. You know, the novel is doing just fine.
So maybe instead of a trailer, you could just release one page or something like that. Yeah. With just maybe an outline.
Maybe I'll just repackage it as a door jamb, you know? It's about the right thickness.
Needs a little more weight. Okay, so we got the one. Now what's number two?
Joshua Moore, M-O-H-R, has a book coming out called Termite Parade. from a little press in San Francisco that's doing amazing things called $2 Radio. He's got a book called Termite Parade, which is really, really dark. It's about a boyfriend who pushes her girlfriend down the stairs, basically. But she doesn't remember that he pushed him, and it's kind of like, I won't say anything after that. It's really dark and amazing. He's a writer I'm really excited about.
So that's a Valentine's book, really.
Yeah, no, his last book too his last book was about a woman suffering. It's very dark stuff, but very, I mean, I think our culture hungers for stuff that sort of dwells on the periphery. If that makes any sense. And I think that if people put the books I'm talking about in their hands and people are willing to invest, I'm just tired of apologizing. I'm tired of saying, look, the book can do this, can do that, can do this, and it doesn't have to be long. The novel is the novel, and it's for my money, it's the greatest art form we have, with the possible exception of music. And I'm sorry, Warren. I like cinema too, but there's just things that you can't do in 2 hours what you can do in 20 hours. You know?
I will argue that The Great American Novel is not a novel, it's a movie, and I'd say it's The Godfather, which was an awful book, but a great movie, and something that we actually embrace culturally as meaningful.
I
to
hated
all.
The Godfather, sorry. It just bored me to tears. I'm so tired of seeing a bunch of thugs glorified. You want a great gangster book?
That was pre-Sopranos.
That was the best
the
gangster book I ever read. Just came out about 6 months ago from Zank by a writer named Hesh Keston. It's called The Iron Will of Shoeshine Cats, and it is the best gangster novel I've ever written. It is awesome. It just subverts the whole genre. It's not about guns and muscle. It's really smart, and I don't know. No offense. I mean, I know I'm a pariah for saying I don't really care for The Godfather. I was interested to read Mark Weingartner's The Godfather Returns. I was just sort of curious because Weingartner was a great writer of literary fiction, who they sort of scouted to write that book, but I never read it. Sorry, Mark.
Why replace Mario Puzo with a real writer? That's the question. But now, what if somebody
What
actually...
kind of argument is that? The Great American Novel is a movie and it's The Godfather.
I think it is. I believe it is, because that's what we have the attention span for. We can follow that. It's
but
epic,
I can't get
it's
inside the
wonderful,
skin of a character. See, the thing with cinema, that with film, you're kind of stuck in the third-person point of view. It's hard. I mean, with the exception of some noir-type films like Chinatown, where you're using the camera's POV as a first-person POV. I mean, I think a book allows you to really get inside a character. I think it allows for more empathy. I think it allows for more understatement, more time. It allows you to stop, put it down, digest. Steinbeck used to use the analogy of a wedge. You wanted to drive a book like a wedge into people, and sometimes a big book works better for that because they have to work harder to read it, and they have to carry that thing around through a period of their lives on the bus and through some experiences, good or bad, through their own personal turmoil. And as a person, they sort of grow around that thing. It's hard to grow in 2 hours, depending on the kind of growing you're doing and the kind of film you're watching. That's been my experience.
Well, maybe you'll wedge a Kindle into people in the future. It's great. So, for me, for writers, I'm sure you have a tip for an aspiring writer, somebody who wants to write the Great American Novel. I'd recommend Aspects of the Novel by E.M. Forster, but do you have something to throw out there?
You know, a lot of people laugh at Robert McKee's story, but I think it's an amazing book. I think it's just like a really good retelling of Aristotelian dramatics. I mean, it's really about the three-act structure and about upping the stakes and about creating characters that are... I didn't read it till very late. I mean, I got to everything in that book sort of intuitively, learning the hard way, burying novels. But it's a really brilliant book that I think it's especially important for novelists now who are stuck in the sentence, who are stuck in writing programs, writing these beautiful sentences that really aren't illuminating much to me.
Well, if you're not inspired to try to write the Great American Novel after talking with Jonathan Evison, I don't know what's going to convince you. Thank you so much, Johnny.